Through the miracle of technology, I am so excited about today's show. This is the No Pants Show. And folks, you are in for a treat. Are you fired up for freelancing? I hope you are. I'm Susan Rook-Diatori here on behalf of the No Pants Nation and the official No Pants Show, where we and you talk to people who can help you on your path towards the freedom and flexibility of a freelancer's lifestyle. Our guest today, I'm so excited, David Garfinkel from the Copywriters podcast. I discovered David on a 7-hour road trip and listened to the podcast nonstop. It is absolutely awesome. David, you are known as the world's greatest copywriting coach. The person that Mike Shreeve, creator of the No Pants Project, credits you as being his copywriting mentor. Thank you so much for joining us with your time and your talent. We're glad
you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me, Susan.
So I hope there's no pressure after that intro. I'm a fan. Mike works with you. You're the world's greatest copywriting coach.
Well, now that I know you're a binger, I'm not sure if that puts any pressure on me or not, but it certainly tells me you get deep into things. So I'm expecting we'll go somewhere with this conversation.
I found you, and I think a lot of people, especially in the No Pants open community, are kind of like me. You're sort of looking around, and maybe you go here and maybe you go there, and you're listening to this podcast and you're looking at this course and all these sort of things, and it's sort of a scattershot approach. Your podcast, I heard it and I'm like, wow, these are things I can do. These are steps that I can take. So I want you to kind of take people who are in the frame of mind I was, who say, I love writing, I love being able to create, but I haven't felt comfortable starting actually doing it. Maybe they're a little bit chicken. I know I was. So give people the tools to start writing copy. Where do you start?
Well, first thing is you got to understand what copy is, and copy is basically a persuasive spoken conversation in written form. Okay, so not just a conversation and not just something written, but it needs to be like it's spoken, like you and I are talking right now, and then you need to want to do it. And I have to tell you, what we learned in school is not necessarily helpful. It could be working against us.
Give us a specific example about that.
Sure. Like we don't know, when we're writing something, we're not sure what we're going to put in. Well, when you go to school, you're not allowed to end a sentence with the word in because it's a preposition, and you must never end a sentence with a preposition. But when people talk, they end sentences with prepositions all the time. Know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
right?
I do.
Right?
Yes.
So you have to unlearn, and that's just one example. There are others. The very way we are taught to structure the way we write, starting with a big, broad, general, abstract topic sentence, it's just the opposite. I mean, it's real. You have a great background, historic background in news, and you don't want to start that way. You want to start with something that's going to hook people. It's going to grab their attention. So you need to learn to think that way, and you need to learn to unthink, stop thinking the way you were doing that. So there's that. You need to want to do it, and then you need to learn how to do it. And I'd say there's let's say 3 things. You need to know how to write. You need to know how to explain things, in a simple sentence using short, simple words that keeps people's attention. You need to know how to sell. I know a lot of other A-list copywriters, people at the very top of the game, people who can make millions of dollars in royalties with a single sales letter. And one of them told me, and I won't say who, but no one would be disagreeing with this and no one would be ashamed to be quoted this way, but it was a private conversation. But he said, you know, I think writing is important, but being able to sell is twice as important when you write copy. And it doesn't mean you have to be Jason Bell. You don't have to be the Wolf of Wall Street. You don't have to be, Zig Ziglar. You don't have to be some crazy closer, but you do have to be comfortable taking a position and suggesting an idea and asking people for money. Those are things you have to be able to do. Not everyone's comfortable with that. Okay.
I would like to kind of follow up on that a little bit because
Sure.
I think one of the biggest, now you said three things. I promise we are going to get back to the third thing.
There is one third thing. Could I tell you the third thing, and then which you just demonstrated, and that is curiosity. If you can write, if you can sell, and if you have curiosity. But please go ahead with your question. I just wanted to get that in before I forgot.
So let me just mention Insatiable Curiosity is the most recent title of the most recent podcast on the Copywriters podcast. So I'm definitely going to pitch the Insatiable Curiosity. So let's talk a little bit about selling because, oh man, I live in upstate New York and there's this guy that does, that sells cars and he's famous in advertising circles because he breaks all of the rules and he goes, oh, hey, you've got a No Pants Project coffee mug. Yay!
I do. I love drinking coffee out of this mug. It makes me feel like I can take off my pants and no one would see, would they?
I'm actually sort of wearing pants today, yoga pants.
I'm wearing pants. I already showed you I'm wearing my jeans. But anyway, but I might not be.
But that is.
I know a lot of reporters from your old business. I've seen full photos where they're doing a stand-up and they're wearing tennis shorts.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Actually, when I was on the air on CNN, I used to wear high-top tennis shoes that would match whatever suit color that I was wearing. So I
that was very fashionable.
Go up with my Chucks.
Your Chucks, yeah. I used to wear Chucks.
You're sitting behind a desk, so who cares, right?
Yes. Anyway, we were talking about selling. Do you want to ask me more about that?
Okay, yes. So selling. I think a lot of people don't want to be like that car guy who's screaming at people and going, come buy a car, our sale is huge. And they don't want to be like that, or they don't feel comfortable being like that. But if you think about it, every single part of life is selling. You want somebody to do something, listen to a story, go to a concert, try a new restaurant with you, get married, go out with you, obey your instructions, fix your car correctly, whatever it is. Can you help people who say, I don't want to get into copywriting because I'm afraid of being one of those annoying salespeople?
Right. So I know some people from the car business, and it's sort of a unique business, but it does stick out like a sore thumb to people who hate selling. Now, the reality is, if you've ever bought something and another person was involved, selling occurred. But the best salespeople don't look like they're selling. They look like they're trying to help you. They're listening and they're making suggestions and they're framing things in a way so that it makes so much sense to buy what they're suggesting, and it really doesn't make that much sense not to. That doesn't seem like selling, right?
It doesn't.
It's selling, but it is. It really is. But so I would say the salespeople that you don't like, that most people think is the whole world of sales, they're like the worst part of it. They're bad salespeople. Now, you could say, well, if this guy selling cars is so bad, why is he still on the air? And, fact is, bad salespeople make sales too. The best salespeople make you feel so relaxed, so comfortable, and really the highest form of selling is to put together what we call a sales argument, in other words, a narrative, so that the person who buys really thinks it was their idea. That's possible. That's really what copywriting is. Now, there it's true. Some copywriting is, screaming headlines and high pressure, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm thinking, the sales letter I wrote that made the most money for my client, which was $40 million, took 8 years, but $40 million. It didn't seem like selling at all. It was a sort of low-key, empathic or empathetic offer, explaining it was to entrepreneurs, and it said, I know you're not going to get a good winter vacation because you're working too hard, but I'd like to get you, a champagne vacation on a beer budget, and I can do this because my travel agency, my partner was senior vice president for 2 airlines, and we work with businesses, and I would do this for you for free, just the cost of the tickets, which would be less than you'd pay anywhere else. Just come meet with me. And oh, by the way, I'll give you a box of Godiva chocolates if you want to come meet with me. They had to stop mailing the letter. They were getting too many people. And in the summertime, they couldn't mail the letter because it's 104 degrees in Phoenix, and the Godiva chocolates turned into chocolate soup without a very good container and dripping. But so selling is what we do, I mean, my neighbor has a newborn, and his name is Santino. He's just an adorable little kid. You know how he sells? Whee! When he wants something to eat or he wants some milk. So we get more sophisticated. Some people, like the car sales guy, maybe don't get much past Santino's level. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that the more sophisticated a salesperson is, the less likely they are to tell you that they are a salesperson, and the less likely you are to realize it. Let me give you an example. You ever go on Amazon?
Absolutely.
Do you ever buy anything?
Oh, all the time.
Do you think they sold it to you? Not sure, are you?
Yeah, I have to kind of think about that. I mean, it pops up and I'm like, wow, yes.
If we looked at an Amazon page, I could show you all of the subtle selling that they're doing. It's not covert. It's not sneaky. It's just not noisy and brassy and obnoxious and pushy. But they're selling.
Right.
They even let their customers sell for them with reviews. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So my answer to your question, I think, is selling isn't bad. Bad selling is bad, but good selling is good. People need information, and they need direction, and they need persuasion, and they need to know what their options are. And if you can frame it in a way that's better than anyone else, they'll buy from you.
So that brings us to, no matter how good your selling is, if you have a lousy product, either you as the copywriter or the business will begin to lose credibility. Bastien Zara, who is a translator from French to English, English to French in Canada, and a member of the No Pants Nation, he said, you have to be knowledgeable. So you need to be knowledgeable, and you have to have a legitimate product. If you're just selling fluff and have nothing to back it up with. How do you as a copywriter figure out whether or not the company can back up the claims that you make in the copy? Or do you worry about that?
That's a really good question. Yes, I do worry about that. Let me quote a legendary copywriter, Gary Bencivenga, who says, a gifted product is more important than a gifted pen. Ultimately, no company with a crappy product is going to last in the long term. In the short term, you can make a lot of money cheating people. In the long term, you can get a great job making license plates, at the state penitentiary. So, yeah, how do I find out? Well, I talk to them. I do my due diligence. I do what any consumer would do. I go online. Maybe I'll ask them for a sample of the product. Maybe I'll just talk to them. I'm as you can imagine, and I'm sure you're the same way, I'm a big fan of coffee. And I found this great coffee maker. It's called the iCoffee. You would think it was made by Apple, but it's not. It's made by another company, but it's like I and then coffee. And it really captured my imagination. There's a little window where you can see the crema before it comes down. It's just delicious. And um, it's amazing. I bought it. I liked it. Then I started researching it. It's sort of backwards, I guess. And I found out that in the press release, at least, and I believe this to be true because of the way it works, they said their engineers did over 1,000 prototypes. They just kept tweaking it until they got it right. So when you find out stuff like that, and a lot of it's just common sense too. I mean, if somebody wins the lottery and then they want to make $1,000 course on how to win the lottery because they had dumb luck and won the lottery, that's not going to be good. And there's a lot of people these days who don't have a lot of experience, and they figured out how to make one thing work in one situation, and then they present themselves as a guru to the masses. I mean, look at Mike as the opposite of that, right? He's worked for so many different businesses in so many different situations with so many different people. He's mentored and taught a lot of his own staff copywriters before he ever started the No Pants Academy. And then you find some people who are going out there with really no experience, and it's, so you look for things like that. I guess that's the best answer I can give you.
When someone wants to move from saying, oh, I've been writing all my life, I love writing, to now I want to do something to get paid. Talk a little bit about the mindset of, I'm going to do a personal blog post and send my thoughts out into the world versus I want someone to actually pay me for my work, and how to negotiate that with those three things in mind: basic, simple writing, knowing how to sell, and being innately curious. Now
Okay.
switch it from personal to professional, if you would.
Okay. So I knew we were going to talk about getting paid and for your writing, and I did a little research. And today's the 13th, September 13th?
12th.
12th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 12th. My gosh. It seemed like it was 2 days yesterday. So 6 days from now, it will be September 18th. It will be the birthday of Samuel Johnson, one of the most famous writers of all time, Dr. Samuel Johnson, an English writer. And he said, no man but a blockhead ever wrote except for money. No man, no woman. And I just want to point out that Lucy used to call Charlie Brown a blockhead, and he kept missing the football over and over and falling in his butt. The reality is, even when you decide that you want to write for money, you got to be a blockhead for a while. You got to realize that you will get paid, but you might not. You might need to do some stuff for free at first, or you might need to do some stuff at below market rates at first, because for one thing, if you're going to want someone to pay you, they're going to ask for samples, and they're probably not going to want to see samples about your opinion about the spotted owl. It's like they're not going to do the mental work to connect. Okay, so this person can take a topic and write about it in an interesting way. No, they won't. They want to see something that looks a lot like what you might do for them. So you'll see a lot of people in the forums say never write on spec. You know what writing on spec means? It means when you write something and you let the person decide whether or not they want to pay you for it. It's a bad idea as a general business practice, but it's a good way to get in. It's like you have to understand that in every transaction, whether it's buying a stick of, well, you can't buy a stick, a pack of gum, or whether it's paying someone for writing, there's risk. There's risk on both sides. If you've done it a lot, if you have a reputation, if they can see your work, then there's not too much risk. If you've never done it before, then there's a lot of risk on their part, So you need to find a way to help them lower the risk to get started with you. And so you have to figure out what that is. I'm not saying you need to write for free, but that may be the way to get started for somebody. But you don't even want to go there unless you know what to do, unless you know how to do it. You know, the mindset, you need to you need to learn copywriting. It's almost like learning, English or writing from the beginning. I mean, when I started copywriting, Susan, it was early 90s. I wasn't quite as successful as you. I didn't interview presidents, but I was pretty successful nonetheless. I had been the San Francisco bureau chief for McGraw-Hill World News. That was no mean feat. First time in 40 years anyone had gotten that job. And okay, I'll admit it was largely dumb luck and right place, right time, but still, that was successful. I had to start over. I had no idea how to write copy. And I'd gotten paid very well as a print journalist.
Right.
And I still didn't know. And I had to do a lot of stuff for free. And you know that $40 million letter I told you about? You know how much I got paid for that? Not one, not two, but $300.
$300 for 40. Wow. Oh, David. And they didn't go back and say, hey, you did such a great job for us. We are going to.
No one ever does.
No one ever does that. Oh.
It's like they were rolling the dice. They could have lost their $300 on me. And again, that's risk, right? But then again, I've been paid as much as $50,000 for a writing assignment plus royalties. So, you need to sort of pay your dues, get your street cred, get your bona fides, whatever term you want to use. I mean, so the thing is, you need training. I mean, No Pants Academy is about as good as it's going to get. As far
The
as
No Pants Project is amazing. Mike Shreeve has developed this whole course. Now it's a paid course. But there's also Mike's Fast Client Getting Workshop. There's the Happy Writer, the Expert Maker. There's a variety of courses and stuff that show step-by-step how to do things, set up email feeds, set up funnels, how to talk to people and how to get clients. But I want to make sure that once people get those clients, they've got the copywriting skills.
Sure. So, okay. I mean, one thing is to listen to my podcast. I've had people tell me, I've never once initiated this. I've never asked leading questions, that they've gotten more out of a half-hour podcast than out of stuff they've paid money for, including thousands of dollars for. I'm not holding back with that, because I don't really make my living selling content anymore. I wouldn't even call it giving back. I'd call it marketing for my other services, which is mentoring people at Mike's level and doing copy critiques, which are pretty darn expensive and which have also resulted in thousands or millions of dollars for people. But, that's one thing. Oh, as long as we're on the subject, it's my book, Breakthrough Copywriting, which is all of $10 on Amazon. So,
I bought it. I read it.
Did you like it?
Long before even knowing you or knowing that I was going to talk to you or anything.
Uh-huh.
What I really like it about it is that, and maybe this is your journalist background, you don't dumb it down, but you simplify it. Because I think a lot of people who are drawn to writing and copywriting and entrepreneurship, we suffer from shiny object syndrome.
It's true. It's
right?
true. It's
Because of that insatiable curiosity, it can be a very good thing. But when that insatiable curiosity dips over into a scattershot approach to business, life and goal setting and stuff. It's awful. But in your book and in the podcast, you just lay it out. Just do this, this, and this. Work it, test it, find out the results, come back, then do this, this, and this. So it's easy to follow for somebody who is a little ADD.
Well, the whole world's ADD. I mean, I just read a statistic that 1 out of 10 American kids these days is ADD. Think about that. I mean, when you and I were kids, or when, before you were born, when I was a kid or whatever, right? We didn't even have the term, we live in an environment. But yeah, I do that very much on purpose. My first product came out in 1999. It was called the Money Making Copywriting Course. And my whole idea there was because I realized, and I didn't think this through far enough, but I realized that because I already knew how to write, and that didn't prepare me for copywriting, and I learned to think about it differently. All I needed to do was teach people to think like a copywriter. And actually, a lot of people who'd already had copywriting training of other sorts really liked it. But then I realized, no, that's not enough. And I moved towards the point that you're talking about, where I realized people need step-by-step instructions. They don't need to be babied or coddled or talked down to. And what happens in the brain for a lot of people is, as they do these step-by-step things, their own brain starts to observe patterns and organize the way they look at things. And then they start to think more like a copywriter. So I was jumping way ahead with my course, but it wasn't the best approach. But that is the approach I take now.
Did you write your book for yourself, the self that made the transition from news to copywriting, something that you wish that you could have gone out and bought but didn't have available?
Never thought of it that way. I don't think I consciously thought that, but I sure wish I had. Yeah, I was very pissed off when I started learning copywriting that no one...
Really? Why?
Because I felt there were all these people, they were teaching stuff, they were trying really hard, it was good stuff, but it wasn't working for me. And maybe I have certain learning disabilities. I'm serious, maybe I do. Just because I'm smart and I can do things well doesn't mean I learn like everybody else. But in any event, I was mad that I couldn't get answers to questions. Things didn't make sense. And I just, when I want to learn something, I'm like a ferret, I just keep at it until I get it. And I suffer a lot. I'm willing to fail. In fact, I think my process is to make every mistake possible, break everything, do everything wrong, and then I finally figure out the right way. Because I know all the mistakes I might make, and I'm not even afraid. I've already made them, so I'm not afraid I'm going to make them because I made them. And then I just don't make them anymore.
So I've got to tell you, in the comments, a bunch of people are going out and getting your book.
Oh, good.
You also do private coaching, and Mike Shreeve mentions that you are his coach. Do you have anything like the inside scoop?
Well, okay, first of all, I keep these things confidential, so I'm not going to share any details without Mike's written permission. And we haven't had a chance to talk about this show. It came up pretty quickly, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. But Mike was and is an extraordinary client. He's very hardworking, and I don't think he'll mind my mentioning that the No Pants Academy was not his first business idea. And it's a real good lesson in product creation, entrepreneurship, building a community. He thought of a few other things. He didn't just think about them. He mapped them out. He thought them through. He charted them. He talked to other people about them. And he just kept, it's sort of like the thing in Think and Grow Rich where Thomas Edison comes up with, and I don't think the number is exactly right, but 9,999 designs for a light bulb. No. 10,000. Yeah. And so Mike did his own version of that. I could say that he's just, what you see is what you get. I mean, there's no pretense, and he's very open. He's hardworking, he's a caring person, very innovative, very creative, and he is a dream client. Anyone else who's exactly like Mike Shreeve, please contact me. Except there is no one else like him, but it's a nice
I have to tell you, that's what got me into the No Pants project, because I was looking at one of the free webinars that Mike did, and I was like, you know what? This guy, he's the real deal.
He's the real deal. There's no doubt about it. He is
and
very authentic and transparent. Very cool guy.
yeah. And I like that he tells us, oh, I didn't like how I did this. I'm going to go do this. I'm trying this. And one of the things that he stresses that I heard you say just now is work, 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 and then work.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are these ideas about the 4-hour work week and the 10-minute work day and the 1-minute manager and the 1-second sexual experience, all those things. Well, at least the first 3. That's not the whole story. It is actually possible to do those things, but it takes a lot of work to get to the point where you can do something in 4 hours a week and make a good living. Because what people are paying for ultimately, again, I think Think and Grow Rich is such a good book to read. There's an even better book that's not well known that I just found out about this year. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, really? I haven't read that Hill book.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of it.
It was sort of kept under wraps. He probably would have been tarred and feathered if he released it when he wrote it in the late 30s. And some people will find it very offensive because he goes right after all organized religion. He doesn't pick favorites, and he goes after all education. All institutional education, like high schools and colleges and stuff. But one of his key things is specialized knowledge. And by specialized knowledge, I think he means a way of thinking that can help someone else make money. And, if you've ever had an experience like that, and I have, where someone gives you an idea and boom, all of a sudden your income changes and your life changes, one idea. But it's not an idea because they get these great ideas coming in, from planet Zork, through the ether. It's because they have the experience and the wisdom and the know-how to zero in on what's going to work. So you need to get to that point before you're going to be doing small amounts of work. And then, not everybody wants to do small amounts of work. Some people enjoy their work enough. Like, let's take Warren Buffett, for example. He's one of my favorites. I'm not into investing, but I'm into Warren Buffett. I think he's such an interesting person. And, he was the richest man in the world. He's usually in the top 10 of the Forbes richest Americans or richest people in the world. What does he do all day? Well, he spends, and he said this, he goes into work, he reads the paper, or he reads books, or he gets on the phone, or he just sits there and thinks. Now, all of that's his work. And then, every now and then he drops a few million on a company or billion or buys shares of stock. But he's working a lot and doesn't seem to mind, They say do what you love and the money will follow. Well, that's only half the story. I mean, you have to do what you love that the market loves too, that people will pay money for. But if you keep looking and working, you will find it. It takes a while sometimes. Some people just know and some people don't.
In the No Pants project, you were describing me. I've done all of this work internally, going through the worksheets at the beginning of the No Pants project and thinking about it and what is my ideal client? And do I want to write emails? And am I going to be a copywriter doing that transition? And then the offer for the No Pants Show came up. And I was all over this. I'm contacting guests, I'm researching it, I'm, oh gosh, figuring out how to do the technical stuff, which does not come naturally and I don't like. I
Yeah.
think that's where you know that you're in your sweet spot, when you are willing to do the things that are not fun, that you don't like to do, but you learn and do them in order to get to the stuff that absolutely lights your fire.
Yeah, and let me point something out too. I don't think Mike could have found a more experienced or qualified or skilled interviewer than you. Okay. But if you hadn't had the experience, of, becoming a copywriter, trying to become a copywriter, learning about copywriting, and B, if you hadn't had the experience of going through the No Pants Academy or No Pants Project, you wouldn't have been very good for this job, right? So there's more to it than just the skills and the know-how. There's that the relevant experience.
Absolutely.
Including the embarrassments and the failures, as well as the successes,
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things, especially, and Mike just imbues this in all of his projects and all of the people that he associates with, is that it doesn't stop here. So what I want the No Pants Show to do is to reach out to Anastasia's life, and she's watching right now.
Hi, Anastasia.
And have her family, be amazing. And Bastian, who just got into a new place that is his dream location. And, I want his family to be amazing. And I want everybody, I want it to kind of flow through me, your skills flowing through me out into the No Pants Nation, where people can learn to live the freelance lifestyle to make a business life that doesn't take over their life. Create a life instead of merely a business. And then when you do tons of work in your business, it's because it's fun and you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, everything's going to be a mixture, but if the preponderance of what you're doing is fun, and if it's not so much fun in the beginning, but you can see a point where you get faster at it, better at it, better clients, more accepted, it will be more fun. I think that's the most realistic path.
That is a perfect way to stop. Alexander, tell me if the audio is a little bit better, because I picked up my mic and I'm holding my mic. He said that my audio was a little bit lower than yours, David. So we're kind of working on the technical stuff. I'm new to the technical end of it, but oh my gosh, David, you are fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Susan. It's so comfortable and exciting to talk to you. I appreciate it.
We've been kind of talking around each other ever since we found one another. And well, of course, I was sort of stalking you before then, but that's what we do. It's the insatiable curiosity. So thank you again, our special guest, David Garfinkel. Write down questions and comments. We will have you on again. You have to listen to the podcast, the Copywriters podcast. It's phenomenal. Get the book. Break Your Copywriting.
No, breakthrough
Copywriting. Break Your Copywriting. That's a Freudian slip.
Well,
right?
that might be a good new book too. Break Your Copywriting.
What? You should do that.
I'll try to figure out how I could make that work.
I am a little idea factory, so you can put that. Thank you to Susan and this crazy interview.
That's right. Exactly.
And then also check out his page on Facebook, Garfinkel Coaching. Thank you again, David, so very much. And a massive thanks to all of you who are joining us today for the No Pants Nation, for the No Pants show live today. Thank you for your continued support of this show. If you'd like us to feature someone you know in a future interview, or you yourself have some insights and you'd like to offer those insights and help to our community of freelancers, reach out at No Pants Show on Twitter, the No Pants Show at gmail.com, or just leave comments in the comments underneath the broadcast. You can participate in live shows. You can watch the replays. Join us inside the free No Pants Open community on Facebook, where more than 18,000 freelancers just like you gather every single day to build a business around their lives instead of building their lives around a business.
So, Susan, I just have a question for you, if I may, before we go.
Yes.
After the interview is over, can I put my pants back on?
You know what? So many people have asked me about what does no pants mean? It's freelancers, because since we're working from home, we tend to work in our pajamas. I'm not wearing my pajamas today, but I am wearing
it doesn't mean right naked or anything.
No, it doesn't. Thank you to all of you. Thanks for watching, learning, and growing your freelancing business as part of the No Pants Nation. We will see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.